Hi everyone, welcome back to Quarantine Questions. It's Dan again. We just got another friend of mine. I've got a million lanyards above my head. I'll throw a little picture in now for you. And I reckon about 10 to 15, maybe even 50% of them have come from jobs I've done with Ant, which is pretty impressive. Ant is a good friend of mine, lives down in London. He's a production manager. He's worked his way up from the bottom of a company all the way to the top. And then he's going to go freelance. So, Ant, do you want to just tell us a bit about how we know each other, a bit about yourself, how you got started, all that jazz?
So, Dan, we met on a gig that I've been a project manager of for about a year now, and before that I was a technician for it, and we met probably in an exhibition hall, standing in the middle, wondering
waiting
why
for a truck to
nothing works. Or
You're not wrong.
I can't. When was the first? It was probably Ideal Home Show, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, it would have been 2012
before
probably.
That. 2016.
2016.
Yeah,
I stand corrected.
Yeah. When it was like snowing up in Manchester, and it was my first visit to Manchester. That was a good one.
I mean, it doesn't snow that often in Manchester. It's normally just raining.
You're just
a
bit norther than us, so
yeah.
You tend to get a few degrees off. So
yeah, I definitely have to wear a coat. Definitely have to wear a coat.
Not good when unloading a truck and it's snowing inside the truck. Let's just say that.
Yeah, we've had that, haven't we? Where the roof's broken and stuff, and like snow or rain is coming into the truck.
Yeah,
it's like,
crew, where are you?
Yeah. It's one of those like you kind of need to keep warm by unloading the truck.
Yeah,
because it's so cold. Because it's been
I'm pretty sure I
stuff.
just got in my polo shirt and just got hands on, and it was warm enough. Yeah. So. And that's how I met. I started in the industry from learning piano, from when I was probably 7 years old. And my parents got me piano lessons, and I learned classical piano. I don't really use it anymore, but it was a very good, kind of learning game as to where frequencies were and how a piano should sound. From that, I obviously at school I was very heavily involved with the technical side of things, and I was in a band. I played in a band, and that turned out to be not very successful, or well, it was at the time, and I really wanted to get into the creative mixing of instruments. And playing instruments and being a musician is what I wanted to do at school, and it was that kind of thing. So I went to college because I decided A-level physics and maths wasn't for me. I think I did a couple of days and I went, this is just unbelievably hard. I decided that I wanted to really do technical theatre.
Nice.
Which is where I started. Did a college BTEC in sound, lighting, set design, stage management, everything to do with the tech side of the theatre, and learned a lot when I was there. It was more of an all-round course, so you did do like a term on sound, it was, and working with actors obviously, and working with all the different departments it got you like as close to a running theatre as possible. That was cool. And when I was there I was like, do you know what, because I'm a musician, I want to do sound, I want to specialise in sound, which is when I went for a degree in performance sound, which is theatre sound, which is mainly specialising in theatre sound, but also we did live techniques and installation kind of stuff. But it was very sound designery, and a lot of making sound effects, and that kind of stuff, which is which really helped you understand kind of theatre really. Working with a load of designers and directors and that kind of thing helped me a lot. What I would say uni was pretty much 90% people skills and 10% technical skills.
Sure.
That's what they taught you. That's all they taught you was collaborating with other people, and coming to agreements together rather than in your separate departments.
Sure.
So, and then after that, I was like, I want to get out there. And then realised there was no jobs. No, after
the
that,
harsh
I was
reality.
like, yeah, pretty much. And I was like, do you know what? I want to go and work in a warehouse. Well, I didn't want to go and work in a warehouse. I went and worked in a warehouse, and that was really interesting. It was a light and hire warehouse, so it was a lot of repair and moving lights.
Sure.
Fixing source file profiles when the shutters burn to death or or that kind of thing. It's mainly fixing stuff and prepping kit to go out for jobs. There was only 4 of us in the warehouse, so we were doing 14-hour days, and that was when I was 21. So I hadn't really experienced anything like that. But it was really cool to actually go out into the industry and meet people and put things in their vans and talk to them for 5 minutes and go, what do you actually do? Like, prepping all this kit. Are you where are you sending this? Like, can I come along? And one of those vans that came into that warehouse was Aztec. So that was kind of, and I think after, so that it was Aztec, but we'll get into that later because in the meantime, I decided that the warehouse wasn't for me, and decided to do a panto for 6 weeks in London.
Sure.
Which is a small regional theatre. I won't mention names. And it was kind of I was the sound operator, sound number 1, sound number 2, and sound number 3. So I was fitting radio mics, make sure they're in the right place, trying to make sure that no sweat got into them, and then operating the show. As far as it was a QL1, I think it was when the QL1 first came out.
Sure.
So it was a desk that I didn't really know, but I got to learn it pretty quickly, and it's relatively straightforward for a small digital desk. So it wasn't too bad. I think it was 8 radio mics that I had on a cast. There was only 8 in a cast, and QLab, which was fired from the DSM anyway. So I just had to make sure I was on the first queue.
Easy. Look at that. That's good.
So that was kind of, and I did that on a 6-week run. Really interesting, really cool to mix 5 mics. I wouldn't say it even got very boring. I think I changed it every performance, or changed the way I mixed every performance. And I really enjoyed it. Once that finished, I was like, it was January, February time, and it was like, right, I need to go and look for a job. And I came across Aztec were hiring. So I applied, got it. Was a tech for a while. And for those of you that don't know what Aztec is, it's an events company that do exhibitions and conferences, and you learn a lot as you go along. Is all I can say. So obviously sound wise, I kind of got the gist of what was happening because I've always focused on sound. When it came to data, not so much. I went into a job and went, how does all this work? And you learn from people around you. Like, obviously, working with people like you, it's easy to pick up things quickly. And from probably 3 or 4 months in, it was just you could just set up a room up in like an hour. And I wouldn't say that it was particularly tricky. It was a lot of manual labor, which kind of is cool, but it's every day, every week. And and about a year after that, I wanted to be a senior tech, because I felt like that I had the skills to do it, and became senior tech. And then about a year after that, they were looking for project managers, and that is when I became project manager. It wasn't easy to do it. I did have to demonstrate my skills quite a lot, and obviously the client side, when you're a project manager, is a big step up from being a technician. And you all I can say is a project management is basically people management. And you work really hard to strive for success. I don't know.
Success. 100%.
Yeah, so that's where I am today, and now I've kind of been there, got the t-shirt, and I want to explore going back to sound, and data up and lighting, and hopefully
different companies, different gigs, kind of thing.
Once COVID-19 is out the way, we can see what happens. But yeah,
man.
So that's
awesome.
That's good. In about 20-minute round trip.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you want to describe a time you almost missed a deadline and how you caught up?
Every week.
Every day.
So I've got a couple, but there was one time I was about to help with a D-rig, and basically I'd been on a really late shift the night before, and I set about 20 alarms, and I just didn't get up. I just couldn't wake up. I tried, and basically there was a guy already D-rigging, and when I went in the morning and I woke up, it was 2 hours later than I was actually meant to be on site. So it was not the best of experiences, but we did get it de-rigged and it was fine. Everything was fine, but I wouldn't say that happens all the time. I would say that that's
very rare.
It's happened once. So yeah,
bought him some breakfast for doing 2 hours extra work for you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I bought my own breakfast. But yeah, I should have bought him some breakfast, to be honest. The other thing was, when I was in college, a lot of the tech and dress rehearsals used to run until about half an hour before the show opened.
Sure.
And that was kind of the way that I think some theatres do run. But it was always just a mad rush to, like, if you had the SanDisk in the middle of the auditorium and you've got to move it up within half an hour, and the audience are coming in around you as you're plugging the last XLR in.
That's stressful.
That was a fun time. It's kind of two varied ones. So
yeah. Do you want to describe a time you misunderstood a brief and what happened?
So that hasn't really happened to me. I think throughout the time I've had, there hasn't really been too many times. I did misunderstand a brief when I forgot my high vis. This was my one of those times when you're like, I definitely packed it, but I didn't. And it was my second week at a new job, and it wasn't ideal. yeah. So the other thing I was just going to talk about was there was a time at uni when I was a sound designer for a show,
Yeah.
and the director and was very difficult to work with,
Sure.
and he had an idea in his head and he wanted me to implement it. I had another idea that I thought was his idea, and we had to try and kind of work together to, kind of come to the best solution. I think he was a little bit more kind of he had an idea in his head, but I couldn't interpret it, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
So it was kind of one of those kind of we'll just have to do the best that we can.
Can it sound more purple, please? One of those kind of vibes.
Can I have it to be? Can I have more reverb and more delay and just make it sound like totally out of this world kind of noise? And then you play it to him and he goes, "No, that's not what I asked for." And you're like,
"All right, I mean? I'll try again."
Yeah. So that was a fun experience for me anyway. So yeah.
Nice, man. Do you want to describe the most exciting audio project or biggest project that you've done?
So mine was the same as Dom's. I think we had him on there the other day, which was the show at Excel with the XLD, and the reason why is basically because we could go in and set up this line array with, we hadn't really done it before.
Sure.
So it was a case of working out as we went along, and making sure that all the connectors and all the connections were working properly, and it was really fun as well. I'd say it was fun. I probably didn't at the time, but it was fun. So it was it was a big gig, and it was a cool. I also had a front of house engineer who was mixing, that I could learn a lot of. This was about 2 years ago, so he taught me quite a bit as well from working closely with him. So it was quite exciting and cool. There hasn't really others that I can remember right now. I don't really have any more. I'd say Ideal Home Show with You was probably a good one to explain, because it was back-to-back chefs on stage. So
you had like a main theatre, didn't we, that had like an interview stage and like a chef stage.
Yeah.
And like we'd have Gino D'Acampo and Master chefs and stuff coming on stage doing their cookery demonstrations, didn't we?
The Bake Off as well. We had like 4 or 5 speakers.
Yeah.
So, and they wanted their time on stage. So yeah, it was cool. And you had the catwalk, didn't you? So you were.
Oh, I mean, that was just for me, mate.
So I bet you enjoyed that. But yeah.
Always. What about? Oh, where's the next question gone? How would you set up equipment on stage versus studio? Does that really apply to anything you do?
I was going to say I don't really work in the studio.
That's cool. We can skip that one.
I make music. Or try and make music. But I would say that the only time I've worked in the studio would probably be at uni, when we actually did have a set of studios, and we had we did have a studio there, properly, with Yamaha X10s. NS10s, that's the one. Thanks. So they were like really harsh sounding speaker, and if you could get anything sounding good on an NS10, you could get something good sounding on any system.
Yeah.
But mainly in the studio, it is, you tend to get away with a bit more. And when I say that, I mean as in you can experiment with microphones. You can put a mic on a guitar or on a snare if you want to, and it will sound probably the best guitar or snare drum that you've ever mixed. But if you've got to factor in a lot of things with live, with reverb times and just
getting the gear on and off stage quickly enough.
Bands kicking microphones over, and you've got to think of that sort of kind of thing. So that's the main, and obviously when you're live, you tend to close mic a lot more, as in getting mics right up close to drums. For example, rather than in the studio, you might just try and put a pair of overheads around the kit, and you can't. Well, you could get away with that, but it depends what the situation is.
Yeah,
but
maybe in like a jazz setting that'd be okay, but rock and roll on the stage wouldn't happen with it.
But the thing with live is that you need as much gain before feedback, and the best way to do that is with mic placement. So that's my kind of studio versus stage.
Yeah, man, that's good. As a production manager, what would you regard as your best skill?
People skills, number one. Understanding that people come from a load of different backgrounds, and you've got to understand people's, how they work and what they're good at, where their strengths and where their weaknesses are, which is the main one. Being organised is another one. You just get your paperwork done and make sure that you send it to the freelancers before, even if they don't read it.
It's their fault then, isn't it?
It's getting yourself organised so that when they don't read it, you can go, well, check my brief and it's in there.
Look at your emails.
The other thing is timings, obviously making sure that you're on time for site. And I always try and be at a site half an hour before I'm actually meant to be, because you don't know what you're going to rock up with half the time, and it's nice to be there half an hour so you can actually plan for when people turn up what you're going to do. So they're my three things.
It's good, mate. Really good. Do you want to describe a time when you were required to think on your feet and how that go and all that?
Every week.
Every day.
Every show. The one that you brought up the other day with the Cat 5.
Yes, that was me and you that fixed that.
The stage box, and we had literally 2 minutes to go. It was a good one.
I'll just go over that quickly. So we were doing a big NHS show in Manchester. We'd run in 2 lines of Maddie over Cat 6 from stage box to front of house desk, and the venue had come and taken the sound desk off the table, put a tablecloth on, put it back on, and somehow broken both lines of Cat 6. So Ant ran off. What?
Did you run the redundant as well?
Yeah. So we had 2 in, and you ran off to get a spare Cat 6 while I got the crimp kit out. And pretty much by the time you run in the cable, I'd re-crimped one end and we'd made it work. And it was just like absolutely mental just before the keynote speaker.
As I remember, that was one of my first jobs as a project manager. So thank you.
A bit leery.
Thanks for that.
Oh, it was scary. Yeah.
Just
like,
the
who
other
does
thing,
that?
I don't know. Just leave the table alone.
Behind the crew hide.
Or
in
give
a
it
corner.
to us to do. And then,
Or don't do it on the show live day.
What technician would take a toilet break anyway? I mean, come on.
I mean, me, obviously. Nervous wee, mate. Nervous wee.
The other thing was a mic falling down on stage during a speech, and it had completely fallen off of their rear. So during a VT break, I went up and I put the mic back in, and that was done fairly quickly, I would say.
As subtle as possible.
As well as, when the lights were down and it was a VT and I could just go to the presenter, put the mic back on, and then go back to doing my normal job.
It's so helpful when there's someone else that can run up and do that, because sometimes you're stuck at the back of the show and there's no one else around that can run up and do that, and then it's kind of like, have I got enough time?
Yeah,
But
and then you've got to fade up a fader and unmute
Yeah.
something, and
yeah,
I
and then
get
they
that.
start talking and still on stage trying to remic the person. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh well, sorry.
Yeah, man.
It was in your interests.
Yeah, so that's that, I think.
Yeah, man. How would you set up equipment at a concert? Do you want to go into
Cool.
any specifics about what you do differently to anyone else?
Yeah, I'll just run you through of kind of setup that I would do. I haven't done it in a while, but I'll run you through kind of a setup. So it depends if you have a PA tech or if you are building a PA as well. But the first thing I would do probably would be to rig the PA. And start with the PA, cable the PA, power the PA, and make sure that your cables are working. The second thing was obviously run the amps to a stage box, and try and get some noise from either the front of house console or the monitor console to the PA to make sure that you have some sound coming out some speakers. Once that is done, I would then move to labeling the SanDisk
Sure.
and channel and going through your channel list and labeling each channel, and it's always best to do some preparation to channels, I think, when you're labeling it. So I would apply high pass filters to the channels that need high pass filters that I already know need high pass filters, and any kind of compressors or gates that need to be engaged on a channel. I know that some people wouldn't do that because if you gate a channel, then you might not get any signal coming out of it. But it's all about running efficiently and making sure that you have got what you need on each channel. Once that is done, or kind of in a good place, I would run the cables from the stage box to the mics, and leave the mics in generally
the right place on stage.
The right place. Obviously, you can't put them over in a drum kit when the drums aren't there, but get yourself in a good place so that when the musicians do arrive, you can just move a mic into the right place. And yeah, so I wanted to talk a quick bit about line check and sound check.
Go for it.
I would do a line check when there's no musicians there. It's easier. You don't have to deal with a load of bored musicians standing on stage going, does this not work yet? Or why doesn't this work? Kind of thing. When you get to sound check, I would normally it's depending on gigs, but I would start with the drums. And a lot of people go, oh, can you play the kick drum? I wouldn't tend to do that. I'd get the drummer to play a groove normally because
kick, snare, hat kind of thing.
Because if you get the drummer to play a kick drum, within a minute they get bored and they start doing something
and everyone
else.
else gets bored on stage. You start hearing the bass come in and the guitar
they start adjusting their snare and start kicking about with the hi-hat pedal and that kind of thing. So it's normally best just to get them to play groove.
And in reality, you're not going to hear the kick alone for more than like a bar on a song anyway, are you? It's always going to be a groove that's going on normally.
Yeah. So, and just work from the kick. Just work from left to right. Work from the kick, snare, toms, hi-hat, cymbals, and then just get them to play the overall kit, and probably put all of that onto a group depending on what desk you had. If this wasn't often capable in analog days, but so just get them into a group, and that will make your life easier when you want to compress or put reverb as such on drums, if you want to do that, and then they're all compressed together, a better sound, you can have a reverb that is one overall reverb.
Also easy just to turn the whole volume up or down on the kit kind of vibe.
Yeah. DCAs are good for that. So that's cool. then then I put here, just get the bass player. Once you get the kit, once you get the drums in a good place, then just get the bass player to play with the drummer, because that's going to be the foundations of your mix. It's going to be your bass and your drums. So if you can get your bass locked in, and then you have your drums and your bass there already, and then add any other instruments, keys, guitars, and then lastly vocals. I put here that I would just test vocals initially first by themselves, because that is going to need to be your loudest mic on stage, and you want to just make sure that you've got your vocals to a good place without the rest of the band, and then check the rest of the band.
Also means that you've got a line of communication open between the sound desk and the stage before anything happens. So often people start on the kick drum, and then everyone's like talking at you, and you're just like, I can't hear you, but we haven't checked the levels on the vocal mics yet, and it's just like, we should have started with at least one of them, and then.
I do know some people that start with vocal mics, and I do get that thing, but you want your bands there as well. So I mean, it's up to personal preference, really, I guess.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not really going to do anything different to you sound-wise, because if you start with a vocal mic, whatever you do, when you add the band on top, it's still going to sound the same. So, that's pretty much it. So, yeah.
That's good, mate. Really good. Hi guys, thank you for watching this video. This was part 1 with Ant. If you click that bottom right hand corner, the little DBA YouTube icon, that will subscribe you to the channel and allow you to know when part 2 is coming out. Until I see you again, thank you for stopping by. Cheers guys.